Now, good morning and welcome to the show. David Cullinane has just joined me in the studio. David, thanks for coming in.
Good morning, Damien. Thank you.
We're going to be talking about the Southern Assembly in a few minutes. We're going to be talking about Billy Costine's new book. We're going to be talking about Oscar dresses.
Very good.
You didn't get a chance.
Billy well.
You didn't get a chance to see any of the Oscar dresses, no. You were celebrating at the time. We have David Hayes coming in about Dick Hayes as well. They're launching a new CD about him, and we all know and love Dick so well. David Cullinane, the first and I suppose the most important thing in the current situation are the talks for forming a government.
Yes.
Where are we? How did last night go in terms of those discussions with other party leaders?
Well, first of all, they were discussions over the phone, so there hasn't been any formal sit-down meetings yet. I suppose what happened was we had an Arcorla meeting last night in Dublin, which I was at, and what we signed off on is a negotiating strategy and I suppose the green light for the party president to go and talk to all parties. She has already reached out to the Green Party, I think to the Social Democrats and to the Labour Party and others, and is looking at talking to as many parties as possible to see what the options are. I suppose when we had the discussion last night at the Arcorla, not all of the seats were filled. Now the seats are filled. It will become a little bit clearer as to what the options are for government formation. And I think that the mood at the meeting last night in Dublin and the mood of the Arcorla was that this was a very resounding vote for Sinn Féin. Record-breaking, obviously. Sinn Féin being the lead party on first preferences. Unquestionably to be tied with Fianna Fáil on seat numbers and to beat Fine Gael is truly historic for Sinn Féin. And then the vote that we got here in Waterford wasn't unnoticed either. It was one of the biggest votes in the country. So I was very proud of, obviously, that vote. Being recognised by the party as well in Dublin. So listen, that's where we're at. The negotiations will take place. There'll be lots of different ups and downs and all of that and twists and turns as these things have. But I'm very much focused on those negotiations, and I'm very, very focused on from a Waterford perspective and from my perspective, and I want to play my part in all of that as well.
And again, let's just go over the figures briefly so people are reminded of them. Sinn Féin are on 37 seats at present. The Green Party have 12, Labour have 6, Social Democrats have 6, People Before Profit have 5. So between those, if you got yourselves and the 4 other parties without any independents, you're looking at 66 seats. So you'll need 14 more seats out of the 21 independents to make it. So let's say 15 out of the 21 independents. I spoke to Matthew McGrath this morning just before we came on air, the Tipperary independent TD. He would be willing to talk to you. I understand there's obviously, and you don't know this anyway, a lot more independents. So do you believe you can actually form a government without having to go to Fianna Fáil?
Well, I think you have to try. I mean, the party that wins an election obviously has to have ambition and has to try and form a government. The government...
Fianna Fáil won it in terms of seat numbers.
Yeah, but I think most people would say that the surge in support for Sinn Féin, the increase, I mean, Fianna Fáil lost, I think, 6 or 7 seats. We gained massively. So in that sense, I think people would say that the big winners in the election, if I can put it that way, were Sinn Féin in terms of seats and then first preferences. So we have to just wait and see and talk to everybody, Damien, and you make the best case that you can, and I think Mary Lou will do that over the next while. It's going to be exciting in some respects. It'll be challenging. You're going to meet people and talk to people who don't have a like mind on everything. We've been negotiating all our lives. If you look at the peace process, we're well averse to negotiations. I myself was part of the St Andrews talks. I was in Downing Street a number of times in the past, meeting with Tony Blair during the peace process, and I learned a lot during that time period. So we know how to negotiate, and it is going to be challenging, I think, for every party. There's challenges for Fianna Fáil potentially as well. What do they do? Do they talk to Fine Gael? Are they going to talk to Sinn Féin? I know that's going to be problematic in some respects for them in terms of what position they go. But we have to be focused, first of all, from Sinn Féin's perspective, what's the best thing for the people to represent Sinn Féin, they voted for Sinn Féin and the people that we represent, and I'm very conscious of that from a Waterford perspective.
In terms of that then, are you going to be on the negotiating team?
Well, the negotiating team will evolve, and I certainly will be there in terms of giving policy support. I'm certainly will be there in terms of being a member of the Arcorla. We'll be making decisions. There'll be very tight teams, and I would imagine different aspects of.
Well, you've been on the front
policy
bench, so I'd imagine you would be seen as one of the best Sinn Féin performers. So I presume you'll be on one of the top negotiating teams.
And the team itself will evolve. I don't think it's going to be down to the individuals on the team. It's a collective effort, I think, from Sinn Féin. So it wasn't so much the personnel that we were concentrating on. on last night. It was the strategy around agreeing that we would talk to parties. I'm someone who makes myself available, as you know, Damien, to go to meetings in Dublin, to be part of all of that. I'm a member of the Ard Comhairle, and what we'll do is, as a party, work our way through all of this in a very managed way and try and get the best possible outcome for the people that represent us, because at the end of the day we'll bring this back to the issues. We'll bring this back to the popular vote, why people voted for Sinn Féin, the issues of health, housing, childcare, reducing the USE for workers, the pension age, reducing back to 65. They're the key issues, and very often I've found in the past programme for government talks were done in secret, maybe even some of the negotiations done even before there was an election, and people more focused on who's going to be Taoiseach and who's going to be minister, rather than actually getting a programme for government that delivers. And we're certainly conscious of other parties who were in a similar position to Sinn Féin, get a huge bounce and then prematurely go into government without the proper planning and without getting nailed down in a programme for government the commitments that we need.
Anybody want to text in, please do 083 333 975, text or WhatsApp, or you can call 051 846 123. And any of the questions I ask you in the context of that, David, in the context of a 20,000 vote winner for Waterford. As I say, I appreciate you coming into me this morning. Do you think your ministerial aspirations in the next government have in any way been damaged by what happened on Sunday night?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure that, it can be characterised as me having ministerial ambitions. I've always said to you, Damien, that's going to be a matter for Mary Lou. It's very presumptuous because we don't know whether Sinn Féin will be in government or not. I've made no secret about the fact that I obviously want to position myself to do the best for Waterford, and also not just for Waterford, but for the South East and for the entire island. So I'm very much focused on that. No, I don't believe that. I mean, I know it's got a lot of attention in some aspects of the media over the last 24 hours. I gave the context. I gave an explanation. It was, a celebration of Sinn Féin members. I was reflecting back on what was a very emotional period in Republican history, the hunger strikes. I was reflecting on Kevin Lynch, who was a candidate for the H blocks here in the Waterford constituency. Obviously, it would have been better had I not said it, Damien. Let's be honest. But I don't think it will be sensationalised by some. People will make more of it than it actually is.
So you think people are making a mountain out of a molehill?
Well, I do, but I'm saying people have all their own opinions, and I can't,
yes.
I can't form an opinion for somebody else. What I can say is that people know me, Damien. They know what I'm about. They know that I'm somebody who is focused on the future. They know that my singular sole focus here will be what can I do for the people who elected me in Waterford, the big mandate that I got. And that will be, I won't be distracted by anything other than getting the best that I possibly can for Waterford.
Some people will say they don't know you. Like, you're an intelligent, shrewd person. You've spent 20 years building up your persona. Was it an idiotic comment, or was it something that expressed your feelings?
I don't see it in that context, Damien. I think that would be unfair for the people who do know me. And I think the vast majority of people in Waterford do. You don't get 20,500 votes in a constituency, Damien, if people don't have a sense of who you are. Listen, it was exuberance. It was a celebration night. It was emotional. It was all of that.
But you were,
and it was in the context of a time period where I was reflecting on Kevin Lynch, who was a young man who was giving his life at the time.
We'll talk about Kevin Lynch, yeah.
And that's the context in which it was said.
He's from Dungiven, and he spent 71 days on hunger strike. He was actually in the INLA. He was one of the 3 INLA members, so he wasn't an IRA member, an INLA, and the INLA had serious problems with the IRA. So maybe you owe the IRA an apology for saying what you had to say.
Well, I was talking about Bobby Sands, and I was talking about all of the hunger strikers, but the reference to Kevin Lynch specifically was the fact that he was a candidate in Waterford. And listen, Damien, these things happen. In the context of an election celebration, all sorts of things are said. Obviously, I would have preferred had it not been said, and it's a distraction in some respects.
Okay.
But it's not a huge issue.
Okay, I know you want to put this to bed, so we'll get it over with then and get it done with. Okay, like, did you or your director of elections, Michael Doyle, think about not asking people to record what was being said? Like, you knew there was phones there.
I didn't see anybody recording it, I have to say.
Okay. And you didn't think about it being recorded?
Well, it's one of these things, Damien, when you're given a speech, when you're very emotional and something is said, I never even thought about it and forgot I even said it.
So it wasn't a calculated...
It wasn't a conscious thing. It was a throwaway comment in some respects at the end of a very... What I felt for me personally was a very emotional speech talking to Sinn Féin supporters, and I think most reasonable people, Damien, will see that. And I've dealt with it. I've said what I've said, and I have moved on already.
Is there any criticism
on the future?
Yeah. Is there any criticism of the person who took the video and sent it out?
Absolutely not.
No criticism of that.
I'm not getting involved in any of that, Damien.
Okay.
I'm not. I'm not one for dwelling on things. I'm somebody who just. Is very focused on what I want to do and what I can do the next time.
And that's part of the issue, that some people believe this is a big issue, okay? And the perception is one thing. In politics, perception is very important, and Sinn Féin cultivate a very successful image and have done that successfully very well over the last 10 years in particular regarding developing that vote. Like, you were here in the studio yesterday. You never mentioned anything about that comment. If you'd regretted that comment after you said it, you would have said, by the way, I said something last night. I just want to say I regret making the comment. So are you only coming out now because it went public?
But that's a bit of a stretch now, Damien, with respect, because I even forgot I made the comment. I wasn't sitting there yesterday reflecting on everything I said, talking to my own supporters last night in a private capacity in a function where we were celebrating an election result. So I think that would be a bit unreasonable and a bit unfair. What I will say is that I was at a press conference yesterday where there was a lot of journalists there, and I answered the questions. I was on the Tonight Show last night on Virgin Media. I answered the questions. I'm sitting here before you today. I don't hide away from anything. I never have, I never will, and I wear my politics on my sleeve. I am who I am, but I'm also somebody who is very, very focused on the future, Damien, and I really, can't say that enough. There's a very, very big job of work to do for Sinn Féin. I believe that this is a distraction. I believe the most important thing are the issues that came up in the election campaign, the huge result that Sinn Féin got, and I'm very focused on getting the best possible outcome for the people that I represent on all of it.
So why didn't you say something like up the Deise? Like, if you say up the Deise, you're a Waterford man, people know that. They might say it in soccer terms, up the Reds or whatever. By saying something like up the Ra, it does have resonances, not just of the past, but of the present. And this is where the confusion comes in some people's minds. That, is it disrespectful for those that died in the Troubles, those that have been killed by the IRA, to say up the Ra?
Well,
now,
I don't know how many times I can go.
Like, you wouldn't say up the Ra in the studio, would you?
No, and I don't know how many
Why
times.
Why not?
But I wouldn't. But I don't know how many times I can answer the question in the same way.
But if you've no problem saying it, you know what I mean?
It shouldn't have been said in the context of when I put it into a context, Damien, when I was talking about.
Are you sorry you said it?
I'm not sorry that I reflected back on the hunger strikes. Obviously, if I caused any offence, Damien, I didn't intend to cause offence. But, there's no point
is that an apology?
No, it's not an apology for reflecting back on the hunger strikes. It's an
apology
I
understand
for anybody that was offended by it. And I think
so. Are you sorry?
Okay,
are you sorry if you've offended some people?
Yes, of course I am, because that's not what I am. I don't set out to offend anybody. And I think people will make more of this, or some people will. The vast majority of people won't. Some people who don't like Sinn Féin will make much more of this than it is. I can only give the context. I can only explain how it happened, and I've moved on already.
And commemoration is very important for Republicans, and I know a lot of people in the Republican family, in the Republican community. Commemoration is so important because of what's happened in the past and because of the history of the Troubles. It's one thing to commemorate. It's another thing to celebrate. You stood up in a political forum and said, up the Ra.
I stood up in a...
that was a political... Like, if you'd sung it, if it was a song, people might have said, OK, like you weren't overly emotional in the sense that you knew what you were saying. You were getting enthusiastic, as you admit yourself. But you stood up at making a political speech about a very political matter, the hunger strikes, and you said, up the Ra.
And I think probably over the course of the last 10 minutes I've explained this 6 or 7 times. I can't explain it in any other way. I can only tell you that the context in which it was made. I can tell you that I was very focused on the future. I was very emotional about an election campaign. I was reflecting back on that time period. That's what happened, Damien. We need to move on from
and
it.
And you've never hid your past. You say that.
Yes, but
you've never hid your. So why was the IRA, I suppose, this idea of commemorating the past not on your manifestos? Why wasn't it up on the posters?
Yeah, and I wasn't.
Because you're looking at the future, is that it?
I wasn't commemorating. I'm not somebody who lives in the past. I'm somebody who looks to the future. I'm someone who's very focused now on what I can do and what I can achieve over the next time period. I said what I said in the context of a very private celebration that I had with Sinn Féin supporters, reflecting back on the hunger strikes. Obviously, it would have been better had I not said it.
And better if the video hadn't gone out.
Well, I'm not going to criticise somebody for that. It would have been better had I not said it. And I certainly didn't intend to offend anybody. But I think it is a storm in the teacup. I think people will make more of this than it is.
Has this damaged in any way the peace process? Like, this has been played on BBC Ulster all morning. It's been gone across the world. Like, you were potentially a minister. Has this in any way damaged the peace process?
I think that would be a massive, massive exaggeration now, Damien. I think we have to have a bit of sense to this.
I'm just asking the question.
I appreciate that. It was a comment that was made in the context that it was made. I've dealt with it. And people will make up their own minds on it. I don't think it is as dramatic as you presented there, and I don't think it'll be seen in that context at all. Of course it won't. I mean, we have to bring a bit of sense to it as well. I've moved on from it. I moved on from it yesterday, last night. I'm very focused on what I am going to do over the next while, and if others want to continue to focus on it, well, that's a matter for them. But you can only contextualise something. You can only then deal with it, and I've dealt with it. And
you won't be saying it again?
No, because it was said, it was exuberance and it was excitement, and I've dealt with it. I can't say the same thing, but I can. But I'm repeating myself. I've dealt with it. I've said what I've said, and that's for me the end of the matter.
David Cullinane, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming in, and good luck with the talks.
Yes.
See how they work out. How long do you think it's going to take?
Nobody knows how long it's going to take, Damien. I mean, that's, I said it several times. It is a clear focus of mine. It is a clear focus of Sinn Féin's. We have a big, big opportunity. I don't want to be sitting on the opposition benches for the next 4.5 years. I genuinely want to be part of a team, and I will be part of a team. Whether I'm in government or not, or whether I'm in cabinet or not, is not really a big consideration for me. It's about getting the best programme for government, getting the best outcome for the people who voted for Sinn Féin, and people who didn't, but who share the same vision. Lots of people voted for other candidates who have a similar type of policy.
And you've stressed consistently the importance of Waterford also being at the centre of that. I think Waterford being forgotten about in the past.
Absolutely, and we can't be forgotten. But if you leave for 1 second aside, Waterford being forgotten by national governments, we have a responsibility as Waterford Oireachtas members to work together. I'll be doing that, Damien. I won't be found wanting. I won't let Waterford down. That's for sure. I've done my best over the last 4.5 years. I'll do my best over the next 4 to 5 years, however the next government lasts. And I'm there to do my absolute best for the people who elected me with the big mandate, and to get what I can for the people of this city, county and region, and indeed for the island.
David Cullinane, thank you very much. Now, welcome back to the programme. I know there are dozens upon dozens of texts coming in to 083 333 975, and there are a lot of calls coming in as well. I was expecting that. And let's just say that there are a lot of people praising David Cullinane for what he had to say in terms of the interview this morning. Some people giving out, saying that what he had to say, he didn't go far enough in terms of an apology. Others saying I was asking a bit awkward questions, and others phoning in a different way. What we'll do is we'll have a look at the comments, and we'll give a true reflection of those comments as we go through the programme. We've said that all along, and that's what we do on the programme here. So we'll give a true reflection of it. So we will make sure that we reflect everything that comes in. We may not be able to get to read out all the comments, but if you want, please do keep commenting, and please texting in if you want. 083 333 975. You may also want to comment on the next matter, because we've got another heavy hitter coming into me, Rob Cass. Good morning, Rob.
Morning, Damien. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks very much for joining us. Rob, you were involved with the North Quays project, and we will talk about that in a minute. Firstly, we want to talk about the Southern Regional Assembly, as it's called. And we're going to be talking to Thomas Phelan on the line, who is a Labour Party councillor in Dungarvan, and he is involved with the Assembly. There's 2 councillors on the Assembly. The economic strategy, the regional, spatial and economic strategy, came out in the last while, and you've been quite critical in your analysis of this strategy. I have some tough questions for you about it.
Yep.
But tell me first why you're critical of this strategy.
Well, first, there's the context. The strategy lays out our next 20 years for Waterford and South East and the Southern Assembly. So the Southern Assembly is essentially about 1.5 million of our population. Big region, going from Clare and Kerry all the way through down to Wexford. We have an opportunity. I saw this. So the process for the strategy took place, started in 2018. And we're now 3 years on when it has been published. My view is it has to reflect the ambition and opportunities for Waterford City, County and South East region. The context there is kind of like when you're setting out a strategy, the very basics of a strategy is it needs to say what you're doing, when you're doing it, and the benefit, and why you're different, and measures. And I think that we have an opportunity within Waterford to certainly correct a decade of under-delivery, because the first thing you do is, like, that glass is half full in front of us, you'd fill the glass up because that's fair. And then you raise the bar a little bit, and then you lead a little bit. The quantum of under-delivery is actually what's interesting. So if you're looking at Waterford in the South East, the last decade, as Ray Griffin and South East Monitor, and as we're all starting to get data to make decisions upon, looks like the South East is under-delivered by about 65,000 jobs. Relative to Limerick West, relative to Cork. And I would be saying we need to first get those.
And are you sure of those figures? Because I was talking to somebody in the Southern Assembly and they said that Waterford is targeted for between 50 and 60% growth over the next 25 years.
Yeah.
This is unprecedented, and this will be the same level of growth targeted for Cork and Limerick. You dispute that?
Yeah. First of all, you have to look back to look forward. Going fix basics would be a strategy. Raise the bar a little bit and then leave a legacy. That's kind of like going, if we get to fixing the basics, we need to surface the level of under-delivery in the past. We know about 24/7. We know about the university. But the good work that the university has done in Rykon on the quantum of under-delivery allows you to rectify that going forward. And I would have gone to the Southern Assembly. While the forward growth number might sound impressive, like 25 to 30% growth, when you actually divide, it sounds like a big number, and actually you take that by 20 years, and that's 2.5% to 3% a year. Whereas in reality, our economy in the last 6 years is growing about 6%. Waterford and South East economy. It doesn't feel like that because consumer income hasn't growing, but businesses' growth is there. But equally, there's the level of under-delivery. So if you look at what Cork has done, Cork City has added 20,000 square metres, 20,000 jobs in the city centre. We've added none. And we should be then saying, look at the opportunity to rectify that under-delivery, because that growth is might sound like a big percentage on a low base. Because we're on a small catchment. So the Regional Assembly is quite interesting, the way it positions itself, the narrative. It effectively draws a line around Waterford City, a very small geographical boundary. And it didn't surface the assumption on the boundary extension. What Cork did in 2015 was it went for the boundary extension, and it said Cork's population is 300,000. Well, if you draw the same line around Waterford, we get to about 100, 120,000, which sounds like it's a bigger number, rather than saying Waterford is 50,000.
OK, so do you think there's been a concerted effort to... I've got Thomas Phelan on the line there. Thomas, good morning.
Morning, Damien.
Put on your headphones there, Rob. So be headphones down here underneath you. These ones here. There you go.
Thanks. Morning, Thomas.
Morning, Thomas. Thomas, you've been on the Regional Assembly. What have you got to say about what Rob is saying?
Well, I wouldn't dispute Rob's figures. I'd say there's nobody better than Rob when it comes to Dyson figures, so I wouldn't dispute that. What I would say is what you said, as in what the Regional Assembly has said, that the projections in terms of growth that the Assembly would see would be the same for Cork and for Waterford. But Rob is right. I mean, you need to go to Cork to see that they're starting off from a much stronger base to begin with. I don't know if there's an awful lot we can do about that, really. And we can't go back in time and say, right, we'd like to start from a stronger base. Everybody knows that Waterford has been neglected and was coming from a weaker base to begin with. So there's not much we can do about that at this point, unfortunately. We just have to move on into the future. OK,
and maybe those that compiled the Assembly document are saying that Waterford is front and centre to the RSES strategy, together with the two other cities, Cork and Limerick. For example, as I've been told, the Waterford Metropolitan Area Strategic Plan, MASP, sets out key priorities with the development of the North Quays, a focus on the city centre, the heart of the strategy, and also, importantly, a democratically endorsed platform for the rejuvenation of Waterford. Rob?
Yes, they are promises, not deliverable. So a strategy should say what's getting done, when it's getting done, and the benefits of it, not an airy-fairy. And I mean that, of going, it might get done sometime in the future, maybe 2030. Strategy should say who is doing it, when it's doing it, what the benefits are, including regional airport, including North Quays, including regeneration.
They're mentioned within the report. I've looked at the report. They're
and there's no timeline.
No timeline.
No timeline, no measures.
And is that because of political, Thomas Phelan, is that lack of a timeline down to politicians such as yourself? I know you're only on the Assembly for the last 6 months, and your predecessors not doing maybe what you should have been doing in pushing this.
Yeah, look, first off, I don't want to criticise my predecessors. I wasn't there, so I don't know what they may or may not have been able to influence at the time. By the time I got there, it was not quite, but almost a done deal in terms of what we were left dealing with was material amendments. The thing was basically kind of a draft that was agreed with just some tweaking essentially to be done in November before the thing was finalised. It was actually finalised in late November, early December. It's just that it came into effect at the end of January. So as I say, I'm not that long on it, but I did try to influence as much as I could. But even within those constraints, there's only so much you can do. Then that goes for the Assembly staff as well. They're guided or constrained by national instructions in terms of how the national planning framework has to be implemented and how the strategy must be drawn up. The name itself might be a bit misnomer. It's not necessarily a strategy insofar as Rob was describing. I'd agree with him there. You might go in from the outside looking at the outside and say, right, am I seeing timelines? Am I seeing who's going to deliver it? Kind of smart objectives, which you'd like to see. This is more in terms of, well, this is what's allowable, this is what's being facilitated. But it's all subject, I suppose, to the whim of year in, year out budgets and development funding. And there's no better example of that than the funding for the North Quays, the infrastructure, to allow that to go ahead. So what I would say, without being glib or flippant about it, our real strategy in Waterford City is dependent on the man you had on before us, I think, in terms of David Cullinane. Without wanting to add to the pressures he's under at the moment, he's got a massive mandate now, and I don't want to politicise this because I would have given him a fairly high vote, because I do believe we are in a position where he could be a senior minister, and a senior minister will do more for you than any document, because they're at the table where the decisions are being made and where the funds are being distributed. So regardless of what's in this, David Cullinane will probably be much more important than any regional strategy document.
And that's where economics and politics intertwine so much. And I agree with you this. I'll ask Rob this. I agree with you, Thomas, and on Rob on this. So the aspirations are there. I know we can talk about the past and what has or hasn't been delivered. So, but all the can be done within the document is let's aspire to this and let's see if we can get a roadmap for doing it. And they would say, people within the Assembly would say that the MASP provides a strong statutory and democratically endorsed platform, targeted growth such as Cork, Limerick and Galway are getting, strong support for the Port of Waterford, Waterford Airport, improved road and rail connectivity, development of new recreational amenity and green infrastructure spaces, clean and green city, harbour and environment, supporting the development of University Hospital Waterford, all those things. You have to put those in. Now, as you say, there may not be a timeline for them because we don't know. But
let's look at the ambition and let's look at how we could drive it on. What it really means to people of Waterford and the South East is if Waterford is 50,000, it grows 25,000. That's over 10 years. Whereas actually, if you redefine it differently, if you said the South East has to grow 180,000, because the South East's population is growing, it is growing, which is really positive. And the majority of that growth, of the 180,000, has to happen in Waterford. So the majority could be 90,000 growing in Waterford City rather than 25,000. The consequence of that for trade are 4 times the growth. Then the consequence of that for sprawl means, OK, you're going to have the homes built out in rural parishes rather than we need densities in the city centre for vibrancy. And equally, it doesn't address the historical underdelivery, because when Cork are saying Cork will grow from 300,000 to 500,000, That's saying Cork will grow 6 times faster than Waterford.
Thomas, do you agree with Rob's analysis that we're underselling ourselves?
To an extent, I do, but this regional assembly isn't being all and end all, and it's not just because I'm putting the emphasis on the need or the influence that David Cullinane can bring to bear if he gets the senior ministry, but also there will be the city and county development plan, which will have to be framed within the context of this regional assembly strategy, which in itself has to fall within the 2040 national planning framework. So I don't think there's necessarily a fear that there'll be development in the wrong places or that it'll be out in rural hinterlands. The intention would be that it would be city-focused, and with that being the case, so that the city can be a driver of regional development. That would have been something that we would have seen as a weakness in the strategy insofar as it looked like, or you could have read into it, that it was maybe downplaying the role of Waterford City. So
yes.
All councillors, not just those who were on the Assembly, were very strong on that. So the wording was kind of beefed up to a little extent, but there's only so much you can do within the political context and within the constraints of national planning guidelines.
And with the new government,
that we would like to put in there, like we wanted Waterford City to be the headquarters of the university. We wanted a reference to motorways, but we're being told you can't say certain things, you can't say certain things. There's only certain things you can do as regional assembly, or else you're going beyond your remit.
And Rob is nodding here and agreeing with you wholeheartedly, and that leads me straight into the next question about the North Quays. This is a central component of this. The Michael Street, some people are texting in, hasn't started yet. Where are we? You talked about a timeline. Where are we on the North Quays?
North Quays is positive. Funding is there in the background. It just needs a cabinet to sign off on it. It's like I would say, you've done your mortgage application, the mortgage has been approved, somebody needs to sign the cheque and hand it over.
But as I said during the election debates with Councillor Cummins and others, it's great to have promises, great to have commitments, but it's like going into a nightclub and getting a promise doesn't mean that you're going to get lucky at the end of it.
No, it's now up to Cabinet to go make it happen, and I'm sure...
Will this be signed off before this government leaves? Like, we still have Cabinet. The Cabinet still sits until a new government is formed.
Cabinet can sign it off. There's nothing stopping Cabinet right now signing off North Quays funding.
Why hasn't it been done so far?
I don't know.
Do you expect it to be done shortly?
Very.
When?
It has to be done in the next 3 months. And again, it's political capital. I'd expect the new government to be coming in going, we delivered North Quays. We delivered 6,900 jobs.
If that funding, if that Cabinet approval is not given, where does that leave the project?
The project will get done. It's a question of when it gets done. And it needs to get done. It needs to get done now. It's ready. The positives behind what people probably aren't aware of is with the planning, with the level of support we're getting from state bodies, semi-state bodies. I've never experienced the level of support. We had one of our executives in 2 weeks ago meeting the IDA. Extremely supportive. ISIF, who are a sovereign wealth fund, extremely supportive. The hotel is pretty much pre-sold. The apartments are 50% pre-sold. People don't see that. They're expecting cranes, but you actually need to do all of this in tandem. Retail, very interested. The office, 50% gone. So it's all positive in the background. We're just going, sign the cheque, get it done.
Thomas Phelan, if you're involved in Labour Party negotiations or talking to the TDs, it's something that you can push?
Well, I mean, there's cross-party political consensus that North Quays has to get done. So it just seems to be, I suppose, symptomatic of how Waterford has been neglected, or everything gets slow played when it comes to Waterford. Other places seem to have green lights flashing whenever it comes to what they're looking for, but for some reason, which was a major issue in the election just gone, when it comes to getting things done in Waterford, it just seems to take longer, or maybe it doesn't happen at all. So I'm hopeful that whoever goes into the next government will say, hang on, people of Waterford have sent a massive signal, and they've said, we're not going to take this anymore. You've got to move on it. And as Rob said, it would be a very big feather in the cap of anybody who actually was seen to be the person to get this moving. So I'm hopeful that when a new government is formed, because I can't necessarily see it being done by the outgoing government, if they were going to green light things, they'd have done it by now, surely. I don't see them doing it now when they won't necessarily get any benefit or any kudos for it. So the first government, or the new government comes in, has to be one of the first things on their agenda.
Okay. Thomas Phelan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Damien.
What do you have to think of, say, about Thomas's last comment there, Rob?
Yeah, I think it has to be done in Waterford to send a clear message, and the South East deliver. This is a decade of delivery for Waterford and the South East. Because deliver North Quays.
If the outgoing Fine Gael government signed off on this, it would give them political kudos for going forward. I
think the great thing about I've learned from coming back in the last 4 years, I've never seen all the TDs and including the whole Southeast, working together. That is power when everyone works together for the community. It's sending a message to Dublin when people are working together. Too long were we small little things picking up and infighting with no consequence. I met all the TDs before Christmas. They want this to be driven on. They're working away in the background. They're always working away in the background. It just needs someone to go, off you go, drive.
You're positive anyway.
I'm always positive, Damien.
That's the job.
Yeah.
Rob Cass, thanks very much for joining us.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. Now, welcome back to the programme. As I said, a lot of comments and texts coming in. We're going to go through the texts and comments and see if we can get a flavour of them. Certainly, there's a lot of supportive comments for David Cullinane, and there's a lot of people unhappy with what David said, and people saying that he left himself open for... left himself open to be criticised, and some people saying I was like a dog with a bone. I'd never be like that, Billy, would I? Dog with a bone, huh? Ruff, ruff, ruff.
Depends.
It depends what type of dog. Billy Costine, good morning.
How are we, I mean?
I'm wonderful. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. I have in front of me a copy of My Chinese Experience, a personal story by Billy Costine. You've written 2 books. You're a proud Waterford man, a proud Newcastle fan. This is your second book. And tell me briefly about why you wrote this book, a personal story.
Yeah, well, it's like the first book, Damien. I suppose a lot of people were asking me a lot of questions with certain aspects of my life and the way things happened. So that's basically it. I said I felt it was unique enough itself in the story to put it down on paper, you know. So it took me 6 years to write it. From
6 years,
from the 13th of February 2014, and we'll be launching it on the 13th of February 2020.
You're going to be launching it on Thursday night.
Thursday night, half 7 in the Granville. Half 7 in the Granville,
and good luck with the launch. Hope it's going to be a great night. And the book looks lovely. It's published by Orla Kelly Publishing. In August 2003, your 26-and-a-half-year marriage broke down, and times were tough. There was a lot of low moments, and you felt even suicidal a number of times, or you could have gone down sort of a depressive kind of a route, couldn't you? You were a bus driver.
Yeah, I was with bus here, and retired there just over a year ago. Yeah, well, it's like everything, Damien, different situations, people react to them differently, I suppose. But I went down several routes I could have went down, as you said yourself, but I stayed kind of positive and stayed firm within my situation, you know.
And you describe very well at the start of the book that this is dedicated to all those people that never got a second chance. And you talk about meeting, I suppose, the woman that one of the people that changed your life, and it ended up in you going to China. How many times altogether?
10 times in total, Damien. Yeah.
And there's fabulous pictures in the book. Han Wei, is that how you pronounce it?
Han Wei is my wife, yeah. Han Wei, yeah.
And you met her just by chance?
Well, by chance, really, because I believe in fate, and that goes on my first book, but even in this one, I'm a firm believer in fate, and things happen. I believe things happen for a reason. And it was just I met a Chinese girl standing at the bus stop down in Cullinane when I was doing the Euroline service for Bus Éirden. And she happened to be the only person on the bus that particular day between there and Cork, and a lot of conversation went on. So things gradually developed, and then that lady ended up coming to Waterford a few years afterwards, and I got an apartment up in Francis Street there, and I used to keep in touch with her. But I was going through a bit of a rough period, as you could call it, in my own sense, but I kept on track as regards working and staying positive there, and the same with my love of football, you know. And then I was working with Newcastle at the time, so I had a few things to keep me going, but I needed a bit of stability in my life, and I got the biggest break that was ever given, you know.
Did you enjoy your trips to China?
I did. Of course, the first one I didn't know I was going to be going back for the second one, and vice versa. But I would have to say the first 6 trips I never actually took notes, which was I didn't have a crystal ball, and I didn't take any notes. When I got married in 2005 in China, I took notes for the last 4 trips, which were fairly easy to dictate afterwards. But the first 6, I literally had to wrap my brains and go back into a lot of where I went and the way things happened, you know. But it was kind of uncanny the way the thing happened. I never dreamed in a million years I'd even see China on one trip, you know. But I'd have to say the country is fascinating. The people people are very resilient, as we know, but they're talking about being friendly and falling over backwards to please you. Well, that's all the experiences I had. Plus, the other cities I went and what I thought of certain things, and done 2 television things, and went to obviously see a few football matches as well, but no way is it related to football in general, you know.
Yeah, it's not. I got the book last night. I've read around 3/4 of it, and it's very good because it combines a travelogue, in other words, describing the cities, describing the countryside, with that personal experience. So there's a nice balance between the personal journey and obviously you developing in life as well, and how you can see the confidence coming back into you.
Very good, yeah. Okay, yeah, that's where I am now. I'm very happy, like as the fella said. You know,
can see that. You can see that it's a journey. The book is a journey, and as you journey through it, it's a good read. It's very well written as well, and fair play to you and
there's a lot of pages in it. Damien, 370 is no mean feat, like.
Yeah, and a lot of text coming in. Nigel texted in, the first book was brilliant, can't wait for the second one. Frank has texted in as well, Frank Ryan, and Matt Keane has read the entire book. He says it's a fabulous book. From what I've read of it so far, as I say, there's a nice balance between that travelogue experience and the personal journey through life. It's something, I suppose, you spoke to me a number of years ago before you wrote the first book, and to write a book, the idea that everybody has a book in them. You've now got a second book out, and this is far more personal as well, far more revealing. Did you feel really joyful when you got it, when you did it, when you got the copy afterwards? Did you feel this is great?
I did. Well, I'm one of them people, a lot of people know me. I was always fairly determined on the football field. I might have had much luck, but anything I kind of go to do, I'm one of the fellas believe in giving it 100%. So I'd be very determined from the day I hit the first key. I said to myself, I'm going to write this. Sounds interesting. And there was only actually about 3 or 4, 5 trips when I got stuck into it in 2014, and it was on a Thursday night as well, funnily enough, the 13th. But when I started, basically you have to really stick with it. I mean, you wrote 1 or 2 books yourself, Damien, so it does take over your life, particularly in the last 6 months this time I was lucky enough to get an excellent publisher, Norla Kelly from Cork, and she'll be there Thursday night as well, and we certainly give her a mention. And presentation wise and everything, I just stuck with it, and I said to myself, you got to get there, Billy, and you got to finish it. But the amount of times I had to go back over and read it and double check it and read it again, I mean, it literally they trick your brain, like trying to, so much to take on board. But I'm absolutely thrilled that it's there and you have a copy of it there in your hand. So the last reception I got on the first book was there were nearly 400 people down there. It was an incredible launch, and I'm indebted to every person that came down there, because for someone to take the effort and come down and say, well, I'm going down there Thursday night and the last book, and hopefully, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be anything like the first launch, but I think anyone come and get the book. It's
an open invitation, is it?
Yeah, of course.
Along. Mary O'Brien has texted in. Can't wait to read it. A good friend of mine, Billy, Mary O'Brien, a text in from John Buckley, another text in from John in Tramore, Mick Kelly. So many people texting in to wish you the very best. So Thursday night, 7:30.
Thursday night, Damien, 7:30, and it's an open invitation, and we look forward to it. And I think anybody that get it, it's well worth to read, and if not, Thursday night might get it at a later stage. To be honest,
be signing, I'd say, down in the book centre as well.
Well, we won't really, because I have other places to go. But the book centre will be stocking it,
yes,
and
course,
so it'll be there, and I'll have signed copies in the book centre. We got to do a lot of travelling afterwards.
Billy Costine, thank you very much. My Chinese Experience, it's called A Personal Story by Billy Costine, published by Orla Kelly, publishing €15 retailing.
€15, Damien, yeah.
Good luck with the sales and good luck with Thursday night.
Yeah, lovely, Damien, appreciate it, thank you.
Now, keep your texts and comments coming in. I'd say we've had the most texts and comments from any show that I've been doing in the last year. A text in from Eddie Mulligan there about the draft plan. This was the 2 Waterford representatives should have voted against the final draft in its format, says Councillor Eddie Mulligan. Quite a long and detailed statement there from Eddie. So what we'll do is we'll come back to that matter, because we're going to have somebody from the Regional Assembly in to talk about it over the next 2 or 3 weeks, because it is a really, really important matter. Some of the texts in the comments regarding David Cullinane, we had a number of texts, I suppose, people disappointed, some people saying they were disappointed with David Cullinane, saying He said he thought he was speaking to friends and supporters. So which is the real David? One for public and one for the party. Damien, I'm not a Sinn Féin supporter, but I'm disappointed about what he said. Another person saying the same thing. Then we had the supportive comments. Leave the man alone. Give him a break. He's worked really, really hard. He said sorry. Damien, I wear an Easter lily every year. I'm proud of the IRA. Proud of how they defeated the Black and Tans, how they defended our people in the north, and how they brought about the peace process. Other people saying this is a nothing story regarding David Cullinane. A throwaway comment. Damien, move on from this. Well done, Damien. Great result for David, and well done, David. Other people then saying they were disgusted about the comments and that they do think it might harm his chances of getting a ministership. Other people then saying that we do need a minister for Waterford and it's very, very important, and that David answered the questions very well, and that WLR, David's been on quite a few times in the past, so it's only right that the answer's hard questions now. Well done, Damien, says this texter. Bill has phoned in to 051 846 123. We've a chance at a Waterford minister and we tried to bait him down. He said a comment he shouldn't have said, but now he's apologised and he hasn't offended anyone, and let's get on with it, said Bill. And you heard me saying it to David. I said we'll go through the details of it and we'll move on from there. And that's where David is talking about. Keep your texts and comments coming in, please. 083 33 33 975.